So, if we want to draw a path to the USHL, all right, where were the goalies the year before? 50% were in the null, 50% were 18 AAA or whatever. And we can look through and see, all right, where did all the goalies come from to get to the USHL? And as a company for Stop It Goaltending, that's something that we can use to try to help our goalies get on that right path. So it's the first time I think that I've seen a combined list of goalie rankings, throughout the whole season. And we updated it. It was updated live, so every week I was able to post them on the app. And it was cool to see how guys progressed throughout the year. Who moved up the list. What leagues were taking over in the top spot.
Hey, Maurice, we're really excited to have Jeff Walker on our podcast today. Jeff is an assistant coach at Western New England University. He's the director of Stop It Goaltending Central Scouting, and he is also the director of hockey operations for Stop It Goaltending. Has a big hand in our advising branch. And Jeff, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, guys. I'm excited. I've been watching these as we have gone through, and it's pretty exciting to be a part of it.
Well, it's Corey Schneider and Jeff Walker. That's
right there,
Yeah,
right up there with with Corey and the big guys.
Yeah, Corey, Kondo, and Jeff. Absolutely, that's just the way it goes.
That's our Mount Rushmore.
Hey, Jeff, I want to get right into the placement generator, because advising in the hockey world is so polluted and misunderstood. And I want you to kind of bring some clarity to advising what your role is and what the heck is a placement generator.
Yeah, so it's a really crazy world that I've been learning a lot about in the last couple of years, but especially the last year since we came up with kind of an analytical way. That's a big thing for me, is I like looking at the analytics and numbers and really trying to look at data when you're making a decision. And the biggest question as a goalie coach, and I'm sure you guys get it every single year from every kid, is where should I play next year? Where should I play? I'm in ninth grade. Should I go back to high school? Should I go to prep school? Should I go play, U16 somewhere? And for the longest time, it's always been, I try to figure it out just by asking around, and there's no real set way. So something we came up with that was an interesting idea that you actually came up with was, in the NHL, everything's comps. Everything is, when you go to salary arbitration, it's, well, that guy had the same stats as you last year, and he's getting paid X. So that's your salary next year. That's what it's going to come down to. So we wanted to come up with some way to have a similar comps system where you can find a goalie that had similar stats to you in a similar environment and see where they went the following year and where they went going forward from there. And was it a successful choice to go where they went? So what we did was we took the database from Elite Prospects. We brought in all the goalie seasons from the last 10 years and look at those goalies, try to find similar goalies, and then have a way to project where we should go, where these goalies should play in the coming years. Obviously, one of the biggest things we always want is games played, but understanding where we're going to go the next year and how that's going to project forward and how that's going to help us going forward and not putting ourselves into bad situations.
So you kind of took from when you were the director of research and development for the Arizona Coyotes, you took that analytics and you produced this platform.
Yeah.
And so how does it produce comps? So I understand this platform produces comps, but how exactly does it produce the comps, and how does that help Pat Schenner, our advisor? How does that help the kids and the families?
So what it does is it basically, when I put a kid's name into the generator, it pulls up their previous season. And then from there, it looks at their stats from that season. Then it goes into other goalies that have played in that same league over the past 5, 6, 7 years. and finds goalies that had similar numbers. And we have some parameters that you can play with, if no one's coming up, but we try to keep the parameters pretty consistent so that you come up with, a group of goalies. And the great part is you get the names of those goalies too, and you can see their seasons. So something that could help Pat is if he has a goalie that he's looking at, he can call up a coach and say that this kid had the same season that John Smith had. You just lost to John Smith in the championship. This could be that's the similar goalie that we have for you. So it lends a little bit of credibility on that end to the advising, as well as, the advising world is a lot about, just experience and who and things like that, where this gives a little bit of an analytics side to it, to really help, on that front when Pat wants to go give a call to a coach and say, hey, I got someone for you. Where in the past it was, hey, I got this goalie, he's great. And it's okay. Well, here's his numbers from, where he played last year. And it's okay. What does that mean? It doesn't, there was no way to translate that and project it forward. So now we can project, all right, here's what his projected numbers are for next year in your league playing for your team. So it obviously projections, a lot can happen, but it at least gives us a little bit of a target to shoot for and something to show to the coaches.
So if I gave you a name and I said, here's John Smith, and John Smith plays at Cushing Academy, then you would give me a list of 5 guys that are now maybe playing college that also had similar numbers at that level of prep school.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be like, hey, this is where they project as a college player based on their profile now?
Yes. So the cool thing is we could take and look at all 5 of those guys and see their path on the way, but we can also project year over year. We can take the stats from this year, project to the next year, and then we can look at those stats and project what that would be the following year. And we also made it so we can select which league, if a player has a choice to go to the USHL or the NOL, we can take those projections in each league based on, kids that have gone from where they are to the NOL, from where they are to the USHL, using those projections. Then we can see how they're going to do in the NOL, in the USHL, and then project from there to a third year and really build it out. So it's really cool that we can build that path that everyone's always asking, like, what's the path to get to the USHL? What's the path to get to college? How do I be a D1 goalie? Well, we can take this and build that path for them based on what their numbers are now and say, all right, you probably don't want to go to the USHL next year. You need a year. Your stats are going to be way better if you wait a year to go to the USHL and you play next year in the NOL, or even going back from there. So
you're gonna let's pretend Merce is 16 years old and he doesn't have a full beard and mustache. Okay, so Merce is 16 years old. We can then take Merce and then with the placement generator say, okay, Merce, here are 3 possible leagues for next year. Mm-hmm. From a probability standpoint, this is what your numbers are going to look like if you go to that league, and that league. And therefore, what league is really the best league for you? And then could you also go, okay, if you go and you play in that league, and if you do those numbers, this is where you go the next year, and actually put that path and that roadmap right in place?
Yeah. And I also have a feature where we can set goals with the player. Like, here's your projections for next year. And then we can adjust it and say, oh, I want to beat that by, 5 points in save percentage. I can bump that up 5 points and then see what the projection is from there to the next year. But yeah, we can definitely kind of tell the goalies, here's what you're projected in each of those leagues. And kind of help them with understanding their expectations, because that's a lot of times that's another thing that comes into the advising is goalies either don't know what their expectations are, or they have expectations that are too high, too low. This gives us, all right, here's your goal. You should have a 9-10 in this league next year. Let's set that as our goal, or maybe we want to set it for a 9-15 and really have a solid plan going forward. If I hit that goal, then the year after I can get to the null, the year after I can get to the USHL, and it gives them goals and things to aim for, and lets them know what they need to do to get to that next level.
So the really cool thing here, Merce, is like, you're not really 16 and you're not a goalie, but if you were a 16-year-old goalie, you were a goalie at that time. But if you were a 16-year-old goalie right now, if you were a client of Stop It Goaltending Advising, then this would be all part of the package. But if you're not, it doesn't mean that you can't use the placement generator. All you have to do is book an hour with Pat, and Pat's got a SKU where it's go on the app, the Stop It Goaltending U app. You book that hour, and you can sit there and you can find out your path. And you can see where you stand right now as an 18-year-old, a 17-year-old, a 19, whatever it is. And then Pat can use that generator to actually show you what your career is going to look like. And then once you see what that career looks like, then you can go, oh, guess what? I want more. This is projecting me to be an Atlantic League goalie in Division I hockey. I want to play Hockey East. Well, okay. If you want to play Hockey East, this is what you're going to have to do.
Yeah. Yeah, it gives you that expectation that where you're at now, it brings tangibility to it. Whereas in the past, parents are just like, yeah, I want my kid to go play Hockey East. Well, what does it take to get there?
Right.
And no one really had any numbers behind that or any real information other than work hard and stop the puck and get good stats.
Yeah.
That's about it. But now there's this piece where, say, given your example, right, if you are that Atlantic hockey projection, right, now you know, oh, this is what I got to do to get to Hockey East, because with those numbers, right, they have that tool where they can set that expectation where you need to be in order to get to that Hockey East level. So I think that's really interesting, and it's really a great tool for goalies to take advantage of. So if you do have the opportunity to, like, seriously take a look at booking a consulting call with Pat, because looking at those numbers and seeing where you're at currently is super important, just because that'll give you a clear roadmap of what you need to do to get to the level that you want to be.
You want to know what was so fascinating? So we were at the National Goaltending Symposium, and there was an expo, and the expo was from noon until 6 o'clock. Pat sat there with the generator on his computer, and it was one kid and parent after another, and he was running all their projections and all their comps and their path, and it was mind-blowing, because now it's tangible. You can see where you are, where you need to go, what it takes, who are comps. And the thing that, Jeff, when you started using your computer magic to put this whole thing together and getting the API from Elite Prospects and everything, I never realized what a motivational tool it would be. That's you do things, you build things, and you just don't know at the end of the day what some of the outcomes might be. It's a huge motivator. And if you ever wanted a kick in the ass and say, hey, I got to get, like, this is real, I got to get going, and this is what I have to do with a clear plan, this is what you get out of it.
Yeah, I think that's a really cool aspect of it. And like you say, it's something that when you start building it, you don't know exactly how it's going to come out and how it's going to be useful. But I think just with how complex the path, we always say the path, and you look at NHL goalies and everyone has their own path. They're all different. There is no step 1, step 2, step 3. There's so many options that it's so overwhelming, especially for the kids, but obviously for the parents as well. Yeah. That I think just having it, someone put it in front of you and say, all right, here's what it is. Like, it's right here. This is what you have. And, you've got your goal. Here's what you need to do to get to that goal. And I think that makes sense, that it was motivating. And I'm glad to hear that that's what you saw from it, because, it it gives kids something to shoot at finally, where instead of like Adam said, I'll just stop the puck and play hard and work hard. Like, you can say that all you want, but like, all right, here's what it is. You have to put up a 920 next year if you're going to play in that league, and that's your top option. So go do it. It's time to put up the numbers. Yeah.
But it's so interesting for an 18-year-old to look at the generator and it says, oh, Division 3, 16 game. I would expect as a sophomore in college, I'd be playing Division 3 and I'm going to get 16 starts. Like, oh, wait a minute. I'm going to Wisconsin. I'm going D1. Okay, well, right now, your profile is the profile of someone that's going to end up playing 16 games as a sophomore in Division 3 hockey.
Yeah.
So now how are you going to change that? That's what it really comes down to. And that's where I think it's such a great motivational tool, because now it's time to get to work. Like, wait a minute. This is expectancy. This is probability. This is sheer math and experience, and the experience of how many goalies are in this generator.
So we have, I think it's 130,000 seasons of data. So
Okay.
it's I think I looked, it's 1,200 goalies, or probably more than that, probably 1,500 goalies. But yeah, it's every season from I think I did about 100 different leagues, as many leagues as I could get into this into this database, and it's so it's an extensive amount that we get to look through. So for every goalie, we can find a goalie in that same league with a same comp, and come up with the numbers, and yeah, so it's a really impressive version of this generator, and I'm really excited to see Pat use it. He had a similar version last year, but it wasn't as complete as this one is. It was our first kind of beta test version, and I'm really excited about the one that we've got now that we finished a couple months ago. So it's really cool, and like we said, you can kind of find any goalie in any league, and it's awesome.
And the bottom line is we're not messing around. Like this isn't just, oh yeah, there's 100 kids and we're trying to, pretend that this fits. We're not putting square pegs in round holes. We're putting square pegs in square holes. That's basically what it is. I got a question too regarding that. It's like, when you're looking at, can you go backwards and forwards?
So yes, we have. I'm still working on a new version of our backwards search, but so the backwards search, what that kind of looks at is you can look at the goalies from a league and look backwards to see where were they the year before. So if we want to draw a path to the USHL, all right, where were the goalies the year before? 50% were in the null, 50% were 18 AAA or whatever, and we can look through and see, all right, where did all the goalies come from to get to the USHL? And as a company for Stop It Goaltending, that's something that we can use to try to help our goalies get on that right path. So I'm excited to see that aspect of it too.
Merce, could you believe if that was available for you at 18 years old?
I would have been spending all the time in the world on it. I would have been spending all my time talking on the phone with Pat.
Think about you at 18, right? And you got your sights on Division I hockey.
Yep, sure did.
And and the placement generator pumps you out as a D3 goalie. Could that have sparked more from you? Do you know what I'm saying?
I 100% could have. I think it probably would have told me you're not good enough right now, but I was a pretty motivated kid, but I think if I had that, it would have given me that extra little bump that I needed. I think there's a spot where maybe you think you're good enough and you don't have to put in the work as much. And then obviously things happen and you end up as a D3 goalie when you wanted to be a D1 goalie. And you realize now, looking back at 27, that you didn't put in the work that you probably should have here and there. And those little things added up. So I think if I had the placement generator and it was like, yeah, you're a D3 goalie, I would have said,
What?
Well, my big thing was prove people wrong, right? Because I'm a little guy.
You were the king of that, yeah.
The whole thing, prove people wrong. So I would want to prove the generator wrong.
Right.
I would have said F the generator.
But the generator wouldn't have been wrong. But what you would have done was you would have elevated your profile to move to the next category. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Like, and then your comps were, but you couldn't change anything about where you were at that moment.
No.
But you can change the future, right? It would be so clear in your mind what to do. And the other thing, and this is why it's so valuable to us, where to go.
Yep. I would have had those numbers written on a whiteboard on my bedroom door.
Freaking stare at it every freaking day.
Guaranteed.
Your numbers, you got to hit. You got to hit this save percentage, this goals against, this game's played, and that's what you got to hit. And I think that you definitely would have had that, and that would have been a great tool, a great motivation tool. Yeah,
100%.
Hey, while we're on analytics and numbers, could you explain a little bit about the UCS, the Stop at Goaltending, Central Scouting, and our UCS rankings, and what it, how you came up with the algorithm to figure out where to place kids and how to put kids on a list?
So the UCS number was something that was pretty interesting, and I had a lot of fun with it. Again, this season, it's a number where we were looking to do. The goal of it is to be able to compare, again, with there being so many different leagues and so many different paths, being able to compare goalies across leagues. So a goalie from the Q versus a goalie from the USHL versus a goalie from the WHL. Being able to take those goalies, and so that statistic is save percentage. It's a little bit of goals against average, because we wanted to reward goalies that were in harder circumstances. So if you have the same save percentage and your goals against average is higher, that means you're getting more shots per game. So we wanted to reward those goalies with similar save percentages, but a little bit more of a goals against average. And then we obviously put in a little bit with how much workload, based on games played. And then we had, after that, that gave each goalie a score in their league, one number. It was usually in the 900s, 920, 950, somewhere in there, where they have a number that is one number to rank every goalie in that league. Then we took those numbers and made up we talked with our scouting staff that we put together. That was awesome. And we came up with weights for each league to weigh those numbers together so we could make a combined list of all the goalies in junior hockey, which was really, really cool to look at. It's the first time I think that I've seen a combined list of goalie rankings, throughout the whole season. And we updated it. It was updated live. So every week I was able to post them on the app. And it was cool to see how guys progressed throughout the year, who moved up the list, what leagues were taking over in the top spot. So that was a lot of fun, looking into that and tracking that. And I learned a lot about all the different leagues and all the goalies in junior hockey throughout the year with the central scouting.
So you say that you guys weighted the leagues. We get a lot of comments on the Stop It Instagram page.
Mm-hmm.
Are they weighted? Is it weighted just on perception of this league's better than this league, or is this league harder for goalies than other leagues? Like, what's kind of the science behind that?
So one of the big things was the average save percentage. And that's something that I really, going into it, hadn't put a ton of weight into it. But then looking at it, the average save percentage in the USHL is usually around 900. Whereas in the NCDC or something like that might be 925.
Yeah.
So if you just go with a save percentage based model and you don't weigh it at all. So that was one of the biggest things, was the average save percentage, average goals against in each league. We kind of had to balance those out too. And then, there was a little bit of just knowing the goalies and knowing the leagues, which leagues are a little bit harder, but a lot of it was analytical. A lot of it was based on, that average save percentage. So obviously all the goalies in that league had lower scores. So we had to weigh those up, knowing that it's a really good league. There's really good goalies in that league. so we had to pump that one up a little bit. And it was, so that was a fun thing too, trying to figure out how to make it so that it was fair for everybody, using the analytics with a little bit of just experience, to make those weights.
So this year, first year, you did junior leagues only, and then next year, what's coming for next season?
Next year, we're excited. We're gonna do some pro stuff. So what I want to do next year is kind of break it up. We're gonna have kind of 4 or 5 different tiers. We'll have an NHL ranking, and then we can have a pro ranking with all the other pro leagues around the world. Then we can have, a collegiate ranking, and then we can have like a tier 1 junior and a tier 2 junior, and kind of break it up that way. So I think that'll be really cool next year to have some rankings for the pro levels as well as just the junior hockey that we did this year.
Can we have the world's best performing goalie with a merge of who's doing, like, within a goalie's league, right? So let's say you have a goalie in the USHL who's putting up a 932 and a 187, and compared to that league, he is so far ahead of everybody, and he's more ahead of that league than anybody else is in their league, and therefore he's the world's best performing goalie.
Yeah, I think I'm going to write that down. That's sick. That would be really cool.
You know what I mean? Like, who's performing the best in the world?
Yeah, who's that far ahead of the average in their league? That's just the best in the world. And it could be, a local.
It could be an NHL guy.
Yeah.
It could be an NHL guy. The AJ.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. Like awesome.
Could be anybody.
Yeah.
But who is the best performing goalie in the world?
Yeah.
From 18 up.
That would be awesome to look at.
Could be a Euro, could be a junior guy, could be an NHL guy. Who knows?
Yeah.
Interesting.
But that guy would have to kill it, right? He'd have to just be killing it. And maybe it could be an algorithm that spits out, and it's based on you're outperforming your league. Who outperforms their league the best, right? I don't know, just making that stuff up.
No,
I would have the numbers on this one.
Yeah.
That would create some mighty conversation on social media, I'll tell you that much.
Sure would.
Yeah, that would get us a lot of comments. That'd be great.
Hey, one area that we haven't talked about, we've done a lot with the analytics, but let's talk about the challenge that you had as a goalie coach this past season with a team that would give up, is it 40 to 50 shots a game?
I think we averaged something like 48. Yeah.
Okay, so you had, Merce is like horrified.
Oh, no, your goalie's had an easy season.
Yeah. Piece of cake, no big deal. Yeah.
So you're talking 47, 48 shots per game.
Yep.
So let's go on first off the coaching part of that. How do you coach as a goalie coach in that situation?
Well, it's definitely a challenging situation, and it really, I'm glad. So this was my second year at Western New England, and I'm glad it was, because our starting goalie I had the year before, so I had a little bit more of that relationship with him, and I definitely had, and I love him. He's the best. He's skating with us a little bit this summer too, and Anthony Aureliano, he's awesome. So leaning on him, leaning on that relationship that I have with him, being able to really just keep him as positive, and he's a wicked positive guy, so that helps too. But that was the tough part. He's competitive though too, so there were times where I had to help with that and kind of pull him back and talk him through some of the goals that he gave up. He loves analyzing the goals that he gave up. Our other goalie, Andrew LaRusso, that played a bunch of games. The two of them, the good thing was, because we play Friday, Saturday in the CCC, so a lot of times we split those games just because of the workload. So that was one thing I always had to keep both guys ready, because we knew we were going to, there's some really good, solid teams in that league. and if you're going into Curry and you're not prepared and ready to go, it's going to be tough. So that was usually my thing throughout the week, is building the confidence. I didn't want to
get out. The primary was that the thing? It was the just trying to keep them from jumping off a bridge.
Yeah, just hitting them with pucks, glove saves, blocker saves, stick saves, just hitting them with pucks as much as I could when I had time to work with them, and then even when they weren't in the net, just I like that we had 4 goalies this year. So I did get a lot of time to talk with them outside the net when the other goalies were in. I could talk to the guys, and yeah, that was the big thing, and just trying to make jokes, trying to keep them happy, and even when they were struggling or fighting it. But our goalies, I think they both put up over 900 save percentages. I mean, so they both had a great season, and they kept us in so many games. We didn't have a lot of last season, my first year. We won more games, but we had a couple Friday nights where it was just 10-3, 11-1, just some real ugly nights. We didn't have many of those. We were in a lot more games this year. So even though we didn't have as many wins, and we didn't make the playoffs, but we kept our goaltending wise. I was so impressed with the guys. They battled every night. It's so easy to give up in the third year.
Well, let's get in the weeds a little bit. Okay. Yeah. So you say you talk to them. Okay. What's that mean? Like, how did you talk to them? How did you approach it? Like, when they gave up 6 goals on 47 shots how did you do it? And then how did you structure drills to try to build, you know what I mean? Like let's get in a little bit of the weeds on this one.
So the first thing that happened in our second game of the year, as far as we want to get into the technique of it, we played pretty aggressively on 2-on-1s. When we get a 2-on-1, we're trying to force the other team defensively. We're trying to force the other team to make a play, and that cost us a couple goals in our second goal of the year against Westfield. So one thing we did immediately there was just, and it's something that we're going to talk about with our goalies all this summer, is controlling your depth on zone entry on rush plays and not getting outside the crease. And you see it in the NHL all the time. And it's one of my big pet peeves is, the player, it's a slow 2-on-1 at the blue line and the goalie's 4 feet outside the crease. The pass goes across and he's diving across to make a save. So recognizing those situations, that was one of the big things we did first, was understanding that if there is a 2-on-1 and it's, maybe controlling a little bit of how far out we're going to come on the address, until if we need to, we call it smart depth. If we need to gain that extra depth, we can do that later in the play, as opposed to coming out and having that, really fast recoil coming back, being more patient coming out, being able to beat the pass on the feet. And that way, if there is a pass that's a little bit earlier and it turns into a breakaway, we're on our feet there and not sliding across.
So, and I never saw you guys play, but what I'm reading to this is, don't get yourself extended.
Yep.
Play between your posts, because that puck's going to be winging around our defensive zone. And if you're chasing the puck or outside the blue paint, that's kind of what I'm reading. You had to pull them back to give them a fighting chance. That's what it sounds like to me.
Yeah. Yeah. And one of the things I love about coaching college is you work with completely different style goalies. So this year we had, Ari is a smaller goalie, loves to be moving around, makes 100 desperation. He's so good at cross ice plays, moves really well. Andrew LaRusso, our other goalie, he's a little bit of a bigger guy. He played kind of at the top of his crease. And then if you go back to last year, we had a Lancaster was our starter, and he was an all-league goalie, and he was Mike Smith. He just stood on the goal line, and he was huge and just had great reaction and hands and made saves just standing on the goal line. And so it's interesting to look at those 3 different styles, given the style that we play as a team, and trying to understand how to help each goalie take advantage of what they have, but also, work it within the team.
So you got half the teams in the league are losing teams. Okay. So you can imagine the amount of questions that I get. How do I keep my kid up? How do I keep my kid feeling good about going to the rink when their team gets smacked around every weekend?
One thing is, for every game, I use the Stop at Goaltending game day app and look at the expected goals against. And, it's such a useful tool, when you get out, talk to the goalie after the game or the next day, and he's, oh man, I really wanted that one back, and I really wanted that one back. And then I go in and I'm like, well, you made 5 saves out of 7 on grade X plays that went across the ice. Like, and having that to look back on it, or look at my notes, you had 4 huge saves. Like, remember that 2-on-1, you dove across and made the save. And you can that's one of the things, going back to how do I talk to the guys, that's one of the things there, is using that tool and just trying to talk about, the positive side and what you did well, and not focus. Obviously you want to focus on, if there's a big mistake that leads to a goal, obviously you got to fix that. But a lot of times that's not the case. Even on good teams, like, a lot of the goals that get scored, there's so much talent. Even at the Division III level, there's so much talent that sometimes it's just a good goal, and as a goalie, you want to beat yourself up and you want to, I should have had that one. It would have kept us in the game. But sometimes you got to say that was a good play, and you made, 4 or 5 other saves. We were only down a goal late in the game and we just couldn't get one, so just trying to look at the positives as much as possible, and not let the negative side and the goals against spiral into, a really bad weekend.
I heard something. So I just had a conversation with Hannu Toivonen. Do you remember Hannu?
I remember him, yeah.
From the Bruins, and he's the development coach for the Toronto Marlies, and he works for the Toronto Maple Leafs, and he had an interesting quote about positivity. You just mentioned being positive. He goes, negativity has a ceiling. Once you hit a point of negativity, it's all over. You lose the goalie. There's a breaking point when it comes to negativity. He goes, there's no ceiling to positivity. And I thought that I never really heard that before or thought about it, but I thought it was really an interesting quote.
Yeah, I like that. And that's, maybe I do it too much, but that's my big thing, is I always try to be positive when I'm coaching goalies, especially in a situation like that where, we're in an uphill battle a lot of the time going into the weekend. We know it's going to be, all right, you got to make 50. I think we had 3 or 4 wins, and, 3 of the wins, our goalies had over 50 saves, so it's like, all right, in order to win, we got to make 50 saves. Like, and knowing that going in, like, there's a lot of pressure there. So anytime I could just be positive and try to take a little bit of that pressure off of them, because they knew, they're smart guys. They're 22, 24 years old. They know that there's pressure on them, and that they've got to be the one to steal this game. And so anytime, I like that, though, that there's no ceiling on it, and you can always be positive. You can always add to that and try to really help by being positive.
Morris, did you ever play on one of those crappy teams?
My last year of college hockey wasn't exactly the best. We still made playoffs, but it was a tough year, and the Western New England University goalies are lucky to have Jeff to be a sounding board, because not every Division II, Division III college has that, right? So as a goalie, it's really hard to go to the rink every day and like really give it your all and like be positive every day when going into the weekend you're playing the top team in the league and you're probably going to get shelled for 50 shots and you're probably going to let up 3 or 4 and it's not going to go your way. So it's really awesome that they have that resource in Jeff to stay positive. So I think it's really important for other goalies to find that sounding board. If you don't have that on your coaching staff, you got to go find it as well.
So it's so funny. And this just hit me, and I've never drawn a parallel before of this, because we're talking about a goalie or a staff of goalies that are going to go into a game knowing they're going to get 40, 50 shots, and they've got to keep it respectable for their team and at least give them a chance. And it just made me think about Jim Healy, and this is going back a while, playing for Merrimack. And this is when Merrimack wasn't very good. And he would say to me, he goes, the hardest thing about playing for Merrimack is knowing if I give up 2 goals, we're going to lose. He would be there, like he would know I've got to go 2 goals for a tie, you know, 1 goal for, like, that's what his mindset was. And I never really drew the parallel. It's the exact same thing as a team. So that's a team that doesn't score.
Yeah.
And then you got a team that gets pummeled and who's going to give up a lot of goals. And it's the same kind of pressure, I think.
It could be both too. You can have a team that doesn't score and lots of
shots.
We had some of those nights, but you know, it's that's a good way to look at it. But I mean, it's a good lesson because you get to pro hockey, and that's the same. Like, you look at the NHL. Well, this year was crazy. The scoring was up, but you know, historically, it was, yeah, you give up 3 goals, you're losing the game. Like, you know, 2 goals. It's goaltending is so tough because you're always, you know, one bad play. You know, the goalies are so good now. Everyone's so close that, you know, one bad, you know, puck play, you know, one bad, we've seen it in the playoffs this year, one bad puck play, one bad rebound, you know, all of a sudden you lose a series. You know, it's just so tight, and it's the goaltending's even and the teams are even, and it's a challenge.
Hey, while we're talking about tight, and obviously the NHL playoffs just got tight. And there's been so much talk about that Bob goal on the McDavid dead angle shot.
Oh, just stand up on your post.
Yeah, and it's and the Henrik Lundqvist comments about the RVH, and then you have that goal. And just like, what are your guys' takes on that situation?
My thing is it's reading the play, and that's what Bob is elite at, is reading plays. And he just got beat. Like, you know, you got it, it's funny because you've got McDavid with the puck on his stick, and all you're thinking is don't overcommit to something because he'll make me look stupid. And then, you know, he made him look stupid. like, you know, like you know, just let me wait. And one thing that is, you know, it's going back to numbers. It's a numbers thing. That's the reason the goalies overuse the reverse, is because it's a numbers thing. 95% of the time you make the save, you know, 5% of the time it goes off your ear and in, you know. But with Bobrovsky, you look at this playoffs, and
there's a 2% chance that puck's going in.
Yeah,
like
right.
2%, 2 out of 100. 2% chance that puck's can go in. Now, when that puck goes in, it's a big story.
Yeah, it's a big story.
It's going to show up on every highlight.
Yeah,
but they don't show the 98 that you stop, right? And so I've got a take on that goal.
Yeah.
Bob's a Panda guy. Like, he's played a lot of so if you're not familiar with a Panda, you're talking about an overlap, just flattening out on an overlap. So Bob's been doing a lot of that, and if you watch that highlight closely, his D-man skate prohibits him from getting outside for a sidestep.
Right, because there was traffic coming right through.
Right.
Yeah,
So,
you're right.
So now the way he's been playing that, he hasn't been going into his RVH with a toe lock or a blade lock or whatever. He's been playing outside his post on his strong side. What happened on that play for me, and you know, this is just my thought, is he's been like, I want to get out. Now I can't get out. Now all of a sudden I'm not where I want to be. And then the shot.
Oh, then he's locked up, right? He can't move.
He couldn't do what he wanted to do because the D-man got in his way.
Yeah.
Okay. And so this is kind of funny. The thing about that, and the thing that I know, is you can never explain that to a coach.
No.
Like, could you imagine a goalie saying to his coach, Well, yeah, like I didn't want to be in my heel lock there. I wanted to sidestep and get in the panda because I thought that's, like the coach would be going, hey, take accountability for the goal.
Right.
Like that's all the coach would say.
Yeah, they're going to get defensive because they have no idea what you just said to them.
Stop the puck, Bob.
Stop the puck, Bob.
Stop the puck. Yeah.
So my feeling is that's what happened, but you could never say that.
Right.
No,
right.
Never. 100%. Well, this has been stellar interview. Analytics, NHL playoffs, goalie coaching. We had it all. So if you guys want to check out the placement generator, book a consulting call with Pat. He's going to help you
at stopitgoaltending.com.
Yes, Pat at stopitgoaltending.com, or you can just find it on the Stop It Goaltending U app. If you want to check out the UCS rankings, that is in the Stop It Goaltending U app under Learn. And quick plug here, all of our drills for the summer PGD and DNHL program are on the app. If you guys want to see what we're doing all summer long, that's where you're going to find it. Jeff, thank you so much for today. We really appreciate it. It was an awesome interview. A lot of good nuggets for the people back home.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. That was a lot of fun.
Hey, Jeff, I'm going to leave you with this one too, because I thought about this the other day because Merce just mentioned how we put our summer training programs on the app for everybody to see. No secrets here. Mm-hmm. Like if you're training at Stop It Goaltending right now and you don't have the app and looking at the drills and it's the equivalent of signing up for a college course and not buying the book that goes along with the course. That's basically what it comes down to.
That is one thing too that I love that we did for the summer is basing, me being the analytics guy, basing all of our summer training on the analytics. It's awesome. It's so cool. The situations that you're going to see in games, that's what we're going to be training. So it's so cool to have that this year, and I've already loved it through week one, and I'm excited to see what next week brings with week two.
Awesome. Thanks, Jeff.
I hope you enjoyed the Goalie Podcast by Stop It Goaltending U. If you haven't already downloaded the Stop It Goaltending U app, you can get your free 7-day trial at either the App Store or Google Play.